I started to get people that wrote in and said, I've been on your site for 3 hours now. You need to write the book. So I wrote the book, and then I wrote another one. Those books led to public speaking, podcast guesting like crazy, and of all things, a contract with a California TV producer.
Hello, this is Raymond Aaron, New York Times top 10 bestselling author, bringing you Respark Your Life podcast, the world's premier podcast to ignite the fire to allow you to live life on your own terms. Every single Thursday, I bring you a multi-millionaire, world-famous celebrity to teach you about the most fascinating ways in order to live a far better life. Every single Thursday, you just need to subscribe by hitting the subscribe button. I'll see you every Thursday to respark your life. Yes, and another fascinating episode. And what is this episode about? Well, you know from the title, the journey of a single mom in business. Now, I'm not going to read her introduction. Why? Because I don't want to ruin anything that I say there that she's going to say more eloquently during the presentation. So all you need to know is she's a single mom. She didn't know what the heck to do with about earning money. And she's going to tell you, and hopefully it's going to be a wonderful and fascinating and interesting episode. Kira Hartley Klinger, tell me what happened. Tell me the story. Tell me.
Oh my.
When you were still married, so you had financial security, start from there and then tell me the horrors that happened and then the successes that happened.
Quite honestly, financial security, I didn't have ever. I mean, not until, believe it or not, just a few years ago. Yeah, I married very young. We didn't have 2 pennies in our pocket. I had children very young. I always thought I was going to be a writer. That was my calling. I loved it my whole life. I did try to write in my 20s, my 30s. I wrote these great, long, fascinating contemporary novels, got myself an agent. You know, I went through 10 years of ego adjusting rejection. I did things like clean houses for 10 years to help make extra money on the side, anything that I could take my kids with me or that I could work around their schedules. I wrote resumes for people. My kids and I, my boys and I, we had a paper route for 4 years, a gigantic paper route, and we split it 3 ways, you know. So yeah, I was game to do anything to help pay the bills. When the last of my 3 children was 14 years old and I was 40 years old, I ended up divorced. And I had not had any real job training, so to speak. I didn't have a college education. All I had were side hustles. I was done cleaning houses. I'd left that behind. And one of my side hustles was buying and selling. eBay came along, gosh, the end of the 1990s? I got started on eBay in 2003 as a hobby. I divorced in 2008. So 5 years of it being a hobby, making a couple extra dollars here and there and buying things for the house, whatever. I was like, well, you know what? I'm not half bad at this. I've made money. Maybe I can do it all the time. And so that's where it started.
Tell me, what did you start selling?
Everything. I would wait for the things that nobody wanted at the end of the sale. Because I didn't have a lot of money, and I was already broke. I didn't want to make a financial investment in this thing. I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to work with what I have. So I would buy the things that nobody wanted, the things that they sold at the very end of the day that were in boxes in the yard out back. They'd sell your choice of box, and then whoever had the high bid could pick as many boxes as they would want. And I would find treasure in there. I would find things that were worth money that I could afford. And sometimes I'd turn $2 into $100. And then I could take that money and go to another auction. And it just kept compounding.
So you bought in yard sales at the end of the day when they just wanted to get rid of whatever. And then I
bought at auctions. Yeah. Do you have auctions in Canada?
We have auctions.
You got to have them, right?
Yes.
That's where I would go. I would love, nobody has auctions like we do in the Midwest. So
Okay.
that's why I asked. I know they have them everywhere, but I have been told by other people that I find way better stuff than they've ever found at auctions. So I think Midwest, I think us country folk might be hoarders at heart. I'm not sure, but they tend to be the best auctions out there.
And then you resold them on eBay.
Yeah, that's where it
That was
started.
enough to keep you and your two kids going?
Well, I was just down to the one teenager, but it might as well have been two kids because it was a girl, and teenage girls are very needy. So might as
Okay.
well have been two. Um, it wasn't enough in the beginning. I still had a side job working at the school for 4 hours a day. So between the two of them and the little bit of support that I got from my daughter financially, I was able to make ends meet. But I didn't start really pulling ahead until I opened my second shop on Etsy 8 years later.
Okay, tell me about Etsy.
So, one of the things that I bought that ended up being worth money that I had no idea was going to be worth money was vintage fabric. Fabric that is out of date, fabric that is, yeah, the older fabric, like that these grandmothers on these farms made quilts with, and they found attic fabric up in the attic and nobody wanted it at the end of the day. So I was buying these boxes of fabric for next to nothing. I didn't know a whole lot about it, but it didn't take long before I found out that there was an audience for it. So yeah, I started to it started on my eBay shop with everything else. It got to the point where I had a lot of customers for it. And I had customers in Japan. I had customers in Australia. I had a lot of people that kept coming back for this fabric. So I started to hunt for specific fabric. I started to hunt for auctions that listed that they were selling fabric. A lot of auctioneers didn't really care about fabric, so I couldn't always find it that way. I had to kind of read between the lines in the listings. But yeah, it became something that I actually sought rather than, well, whatever I can find. I'm like, well, whatever I can find, but I sure hope there's fabric too. So I needed a separate space for that fabric. It was getting too congested on eBay. I would have 3,000 things listed on eBay and maybe 300 of them was fabric. But if somebody was coming to look for fabric, then they had to dig through all my other stuff to find it. So I had to take another leap of faith and start a brand new shop on Etsy with only fabric. So it was kind of like starting all over again, you know.
In
It
terms
was
of
scary. I was like,
uh,
what if I lose the customers I have?
okay, wow. So you fell into fabric by accident.
I did.
Wow. So by old fabric, like what's the difference? How does someone know if a fabric is old or not old?
There's a lot of different ways you can tell, and a lot of it depends on the era. Now, there are different widths of fabric, and the width depends on the loom that was made or used to make the fabric. So if you get a piece of fabric that's back in the early 1900s, the width of those looms started out being about 18 inches wide. And then into the 1920s, you started seeing ones that were more, in the 20s, 22, 24, in those widths. Then you get into the 30s. Now you have the loom widths. Now you can find 32, 34, 36. Fabric nowadays is usually a standard 44 to 45 inches wide for quilting type fabric. So that's your first clue, is by looking at the width. And they stopped using widths in the 30s. Right around the 1960s, you could still find some 35-inch fabric in the 1970s, but pretty much that's when they quit. Another key component is the fabric content. Now, polyester did not make its grand entrance into this type of fabric until 1959. So there's a way to burn test fabric to find out what the fiber content is in the fabric. So if you find a piece of fabric that is all cotton and that falls into this 32, 34, 36-inch width, you know that there's a very, very strong likelihood that that fabric, is pre-1960s. If it has polyester in it, then it's most definitely post-1960s.
Now, what is the lesson for my listeners? Since you fell into fabric by accident, what is the lesson? What can they take from this interview so far?
Honestly, I think that I didn't know anything about fabric either. So it just comes down to the willingness to achieve, the willingness to learn, the willingness to take something and say, can I make something from that? You know, that yeah, the world is one big giant oyster, and there's a lot of different ways to make a dollar. And if you're motivated, it can be made out of just about anything. I would have never in a million years guessed that I would be in resale, never selling fabric. I don't have people that sew in my family. I know how to make a quilt, but I don't know how to use a sewing machine. You know, I'm a carpenter. I can use hand tools and things like that, and I can do drywall. I can't use a sewing machine. You know, but I've learned enough about the fabric that yeah, I can sell it now, and there's people out there that will buy it. So be bold, be brave. And there are so many things that happened like after the fabric. It was incredible. I never could have expected.
Tell me.
So the fabric, you know, I'm a storyteller, you know, so I'm selling this fabric. I'm meeting the families who of these quilters, of these women or men sometimes that owned this fabric collection. So I'm learning about where it came from. The auctioneers they're incredulous. Some of the stories about the auctioneers are just insane. And the competition is sometimes ruthless. Sometimes I'm going against 80-year-old grandmothers that are stealing at the auction. You know, you never know who I'm going to run into. So I had all these little fabulous stories, and I would want to tell them. So I would write essays on the listing pages for these pieces of fabric. Hey, this is what happened that day. It was insane, but this is what I had to go through to get this piece of fabric that I'm offering to you. And I started to get people that wrote in and said, you know what, I've been on your site for 3 hours now. I want more. You need to write the book. And I had so many people tell me to write a book with the full length stories that I started to reconsider the writing. I hadn't picked up writing in 20 years. You know, I gave it up. I thought, wow, it's not for me. And I always wrote fiction. I like to make things up, but here I am writing memoirs and nonfiction and realizing, oh my gosh, this is still storytelling. It's still characters. It's just the characters are real people, you know? So I wrote the book. And then I wrote another one. And those books led to public speaking, and they led to podcast guesting like crazy. And they led to, of all things, a contract with a California TV producer. It was crazy.
You're on TV?
I am not on TV. You know, if you get hooked up with, I mean, a producer is kind of like the same thing as saying that you have an agent for a book. Okay, that agent believes in you, but that agent still has to sell the book to the publisher. So I caught the interest of a California TV producer. She signed me to a contract because she believed in me. She believed in my stories. She liked my life. She related to me, but she was still in a position where she had to sell me to a network.
Right.
And that's just something that it hasn't happened. But you know what? That's okay, because I don't know that my direction was to be on TV anyway. It was just having the belief in me kind of pushed me further. And yeah, I'm like, well, you know what? I don't have to be on TV, but if she believes in me, maybe people are interested in my story. And so that's kind of where the guest speaking took off and all the podcast interviews took off. So it was a stepping stone.
So, Kira, Steve Jobs once said, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. So looking backwards on your life, I can see that there was desperation and urgency and necessity because you had to make a living. You had to feed your children. There was no option. And suddenly you got this hint of old or antique linen. And then that led to writing about it. And then that led to putting those writings into a book. And then that led to professional speaking. And then that led to podcast guesting. You just kept following this wiggly path. Anything that was in your area of expertise and lots of fun and made money.
Yeah.
You did it.
And, you know, and I also took a giant leap of faith on love again, and I got remarried at 45. And
Nice.
we both brought marital debt, and as of 3 years ago, we're 100% debt free. At 55, I became debt free for the first time in my entire adult life.
Freedom 55.
Freedom 55. So now it's like looking forward. It's like, wow, what do we want to do? I mean, he's not retired yet, but he's getting there. He's getting antsy. I don't know if I'll ever retire because I really love what I do. But yeah, it's just like to have that ability to choose, and it's amazing.
So all this financial well-being came to you because you kept noticing what the universe was offering you. You just
Yeah.
kept noticing this, noticing that, and following your love. And when you wrote those books in the past and they never took off, that wasn't a failure. That was actually a dress rehearsal for your current books.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it.
Wow. What a fascinating life that you had no idea was coming.
Not a clue.
Some
Not
people,
a clue.
their father is a lawyer and their grandfather was a lawyer. So they go to the same school, Harvard, and they become a lawyer and their life's pretty well set. But you had no idea. No idea. Wow.
No,
Similarly with me. I graduated in physics and mathematics, and here I am podcasting on having a better life. What I had no idea that would ever be in my life.
yeah, it's completely opposite spectrums.
Now, let's let's make some money for you and let's spread the joy. You mentioned that you wrote two books, but were you too shy to actually mention their titles?
Oh no.
Okay, so let's have my subscribers buy your books. Tell us about them.
So we have Fabric Wars, and then there's Fabric Wars and More. And they're both in my Etsy shop. They're both on Amazon. I can say that, I mean, I sell the lion's share of my books when I go do my speaking gigs. I go speak at quilting guilds because who cares about fabric? Oh, quilters care. Let's go to quilting guilds. So, but yeah, and they're not honestly just about fabric. It's kind of about, it's a journal. It's a memoir. It talks about how I got to where I am today. It talks about a little bit about resale and the ins and outs. It's kind of very dry humor throughout. There's a lot of really, really funny stories. But yeah, it's a lot about life, less about fabric, a lot about the hunt.
Wow, very nice.
It's been a fun ride.
Now, what historical figure is your idol, or who do you look up to in history?
Oh gosh, boy, you asked a hard one there. You didn't prepare me for that one.
I did not.
You did not. I don't know. There's so many. I mean, I think, and I hate to call her historical because she's still here. But I have a lot of admiration for Dolly Parton. I just think she is an incredible giver. And
Wow.
that's part of my life too, is that I try to be a giver as well. I do a lot of missions. I do a lot of volunteer work. I mean, I donate our chickens' eggs on the small side. It's just, but I just think she's incredible with what she's done with her empire. She started from nothing as well. She
Yes.
started with less than nothing. And yeah, she's a survivor. She's great.
Yes, that's a wonderful person to look up to.
Yeah.
And tell me a favorite quotation of yours.
If not me, then who?
Ah, yes. And do you know who said that?
You know what? I did. Once upon a time, and it goes,
It's
there's
a
like a
thing.
longer version of it, and it's somebody English, and I can't think, but then somebody else reset it. I knew once upon a time, but I can't bring it right now. It's gone.
It's a famous Jewish scholar and dark.
Jewish, that's right. Thank you.
I've forgotten his name as well.
Yeah, there was a longer version of it, but basically it gets down to that. I mean, for the longest time, and it still is, my favorite word is if, because if holds so much potential for either good or bad. It's just such an incredibly powerful 2-letter word. And so then to expand it, I went into if not me, then who, because I'm a strong believer in, like I said, helping out other people, which is a big reason why I like to get on podcasts like this, because I don't need to scale or grow anymore at this point. I'm coasting. I'm doing great. I'm just coasting into retirement. But what I can do is be that voice that helps somebody that's wearing my old shoes.
Well, you definitely are a model of behavior, a model of following what you love, doing what you love, taking risks. Wow. Congratulations.
Thanks.
You have
Thank you.
led a spectacular life and you've earned the reward. You're debt free and your kids probably, I'm making this up, I should ask it as a question. What do your kids think of you?
Well, I'm just mom, just another side hustle, whatever. Um, but we share 8 grandkids right now. And so those are the people. I mean, they're like, they think we're pretty awesome. So, when they're young, they're not afraid to tell you how much they love you and how great you are. When your kids are older and starting out, they're just too busy proving to you that they can do it better. You know how that goes.
Well,
But
Kira
yeah.
Hartley Klinger, I have really, really enjoyed this interview and I admire your life. You've done a spectacular job. One of the things I teach is double your income doing what you love, and you are a perfect model for that. May my subscribers buy your book, and may you continue to inspire so many people. Wow, I sure hope you enjoyed that fascinating episode. Please make sure you've subscribed, and please tell your friends, if you like it, that they will probably like it as well. For your information, this experience, this service, this podcast has been sponsored by the Orbit Coaching Program. All of my friends, all my world-famous speaker friends, all have coaching programs. Mine has been independently rated as the #1 high-level coaching program. You cannot purchase it. You have to audition for it by me personally. If you're interested, please email me at respark@aaron.com. Respark@AARON. Say that you're interested in being considered for the Orbit Coaching Program and include your cell phone number so that I personally will call you back.